Well, the trials of some utility companies have weighed heavily on the industry this year. The Dow Jones Utility Index has shed more than 26% of its value since January. But there are some utility companies that still have some spark left. Leslie Rich is senior industry analyst at Bank of America Capital Management. She joins us now to explain what went wrong with the sector and if it's a good idea to invest now. So, Leslie, thanks for joining me on the set.
Thank you.
So let's go over just quickly some of the things that went wrong, because a lot went wrong with the utility sector.
It started with deregulation. There was a tremendous amount of new gas-fired generation built in the country by independent power producers and some utilities that invested in unregulated generation throughout the country. And in fact, there was too much built. Over the past 4 years, there's been about 150,000 megawatts built, which increases the supply by 25%, clearly more than the demand was increasing. So the increase in supply led to a decrease in prices.
And also, we heard a lot about energy trading and the energy trading markets. That became like a new thing that people really didn't understand. And of course, the debacle with Enron, that's been a big concern. What's the status of the energy trading markets now?
Well, a lot of the companies that were doing energy trading are now below investment grade, and they really aren't capable at that credit level to trade. So the liquidity and the volumes has dried up. So now what you have is companies that actually own the assets trading the physical electrons, as opposed to financial volumes traded just to arbitrage between different basis differential spreads.
Okay, now let's talk about some companies. We know some of the names that didn't do so well this year, obviously for some of the reasons we just talked about. But there are some companies that managed to do a couple of things, had strong balance sheets, strong cash flow, stable credit ratings. Some of those names.
Dominion Resources is a name that they have stable utility operations, which leads to a strong base of cash flows, but they also have an energy trading and marketing business that they can optimize their assets, and they also have 25% of their earnings from exploration and production via an acquisition they did last year. So they really have exposure to rising natural gas prices, which in this kind of environment is a real positive.
What about the prices? You mentioned briefly about the utility prices, and obviously those coming down, and that was part of the equation. Are they going to rise again?
Electricity prices?
Or what we call power prices.
Yes,
yeah,
power prices. They're likely to stay suppressed through 2003, but rising natural gas prices leads to higher electricity prices in some parts of the country, and so the companies that benefit from that are those that have nuclear or coal generating capacity, because their fuel price does not rise, but the electricity price does, so their margins widen. So those are the kinds of companies that I focus on.
Now, you mentioned Dominion Resources. Also, Con Edison is on that list, and we pretty much have that in the Northeast. So is that a good play in sort of your criteria?
Con Edison sold off all of its generation assets, so they're now a transmission and distribution company solely, and which remains regulated. So they don't really benefit from rising prices. They pass those higher prices right through to the end-use customers. They do benefit from cold weather as you use more gas as a consumer, but they don't benefit from rising prices.
What about profit forecast revisions? We've seen a lot of companies do that. Any expectations of who else may do that?
Well, in general, because power prices are projected to stay soft in 2003, it is likely that many companies in the utility sector are likely to have flat to down earnings next year, particularly those that have a large portion of their earnings derived from unregulated sources.
Okay. Leslie Rich, we have to leave it there. Thanks so much, Leslie Rich of Bank of America Capital Management. When we come back on Market Line.